Hi, I'm Mark Devere with Robert Mondavi Winery, and today we're going to be sampling some of our beautiful wines from the wonderful Napa Valley in California. Robert Mondavi Winery, of course, was founded in 1966 by Robert Mondavi, and in those days it was considered a radical new idea. His vision that California, and in particular Napa Valley, could create what he called wines in the company of the great wines of the world. And I think these days Napa Valley is well respected, and most people accept that the wines from Napa Valley absolutely can compete or be served in the same company as any of the great wines of the world. Today we've got a few white wines, a few red wines. Part of the beauty of Napa Valley is that although it's a fairly small area, it's only about 50 kilometers from the north end to the south end of Napa, but it's got a lot of diversity in the growing conditions. Not only a lot of diversity in the soils, but a huge range of different climates in the valley. In the heart of the valley, Oakville, where Robert Mondavi Winery itself is based, beautiful, warm area, perfect for Cabernet Sauvignon. But up there it's a little bit cool for some of the cooler climate varieties like Chardonnay or Pinot Noir. So the first wine we're trying today is our Napa Valley Chardonnay. And for Chardonnay, we grow all our grapes in the south end of the valley. When you go down to the south end of the valley, beautiful rolling vineyards of Carneros. You can be standing in the vineyards looking out over the beautiful cool water of San Francisco Bay. And also when you get to the south end of the valley, you come south of the range of mountains that forms the valley, and the vineyards are exposed to the cold air coming off the ocean from the beautiful cold Pacific Ocean. And that cold air and the fog that comes off the ocean really slows down the ripening of the grapes. And particularly for Chardonnay, that's really important, because what we want in our Chardonnay is a wonderful, bright, fresh style. It's a style of wine that we do mostly ferment and age in French oak barrels. We only use French oak at Robert Mondavi Winery because we find the flavors of the French oak complement our style of wine better. But for our Chardonnay, we don't want too much oak flavor. So only about 15–20% of those barrels are new, and that's where you're getting the oak flavor from. The rest of the barrels we use have been previously used in previous vintages. So all we're getting from that is some roundness and some richness in the texture. So when you smell our Chardonnay, you might get a hint of that vanilla, beautiful oak character, but not too much. And when you taste it, really what we want to shine through in the wine is the vibrant, fresh fruit character from this cool climate, bright style of Chardonnay. So I think you'll find it's a really refreshing style of Chardonnay, very, very drinkable. The next white wine we're having is our Fumé Blanc, and Fumé Blanc, you may know, is an alternative name for Sauvignon Blanc. It's actually a name that was invented by Robert Mondavi back in 1966 when Mr. Mondavi founded the winery. Sauvignon Blanc was fairly widely grown in California, but it was almost always made as a sweet wine, usually considered a fairly low quality wine. Mr. Mondavi wanted to make a dry, high quality style of wine, and so he basically came up with the name Fumé Blanc, had it registered as an alternative name for the Sauvignon Blanc variety. So it's a style of wine that we love. It's not the New Zealand Marlborough cool climate style at all. It's a very different style. We definitely get the crispness and the freshness that we want in Sauvignon Blanc. You get that beautiful mouth-watering raciness and the acidity, but it doesn't have the sort of pungent, aromatic, herbal notes that some New Zealand styles have. Instead, you get much more focus on the sort of peach, nectarine, fruit characters, and a lovely citrus edge to it as well. Beautiful sort of grapefruit, lemon, lime freshness. And it's a wine where I think you'll find it has wonderful focus, great presence in the mouth, but it's not a big wine. We want focus without being a sort of fruit bomb, rich style of wine. We want intensity, but appetizing, mouth-watering crispness. Beautiful, very, very versatile wine, great by itself, but wonderful with a wide range of foods. One of my favorite wines in the portfolio. Let's move to our red wines. First red wine we're going to be trying is our Pinot Noir. And again, just as I mentioned with the Chardonnay, Pinot Noir all comes from the very south end of Napa Valley, the cool climate area, and this wine is entirely from a region I mentioned called Carneros. And those beautiful rolling hills exposed to the wind off the ocean, that cool climate area brings out the brightness and the freshness that we want in Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir from Carneros always has a sort of fleshiness and a softness to it, which makes it a very enjoyable, very pleasurable style of wine. The challenge in Carneros Pinot is to capture the brightness, is to capture the freshness. And what we're looking for is the characteristics, as I sometimes describe it, the characters of freshly picked summer fruit, and trying to avoid the characters of cooked fruit or jammy fruit. We want that mouth-watering, fresh berry character. So in the Pinot Noir, you'll find flavors sort of reminiscent of freshly picked summer berries and fresh cherry characters. We're looking for a style that captures that velvety silkiness, but has a bright, mouth-watering freshness to it all. Delicious. By the way, you'll notice I've got it just on top of the ice bucket here. So a style of wine I like to serve around about 15 degrees is perfect for it. We don't want it to be too warm, otherwise you lose some of that brightness and freshness. So after the Pinot Noir, let's move to something a little richer and fuller, and this is our Napa Valley Cabernet Sauvignon. So Cabernet Sauvignon is a variety that likes a bit more warmth in the growing region. So Cabernet Sauvignon we grow a lot around Robert Mondavi Winery in Oakville, right in the heart of the valley. Not up at the north end, it gets a little warm for our style up there, but Oakville in the middle of Napa Valley, we have the perfect balance of warm, sunny days so that the Cabernet Sauvignon can ripen, but we still get these beautiful, cool nights. It's wonderful in the middle of the day, and in summer it might be 30 degrees some days, but it will often drop to almost 10 degrees, almost always down like 15 degrees at night. So really nice, cool nights, and that's what helps preserve the brightness and the freshness and that mouth-watering character. The Robert Mondavi Winery style, as we're mentioning with these other wines, is about having intensity without being too big. We don't want to make a fruit bomb style. We want a wine that, again, has that freshly picked summer berry character. When you taste our Cabernet Sauvignon, you'll definitely get more richness and ripeness than in the Pinot Noir, but it's a style of wine where you'll find those blackberry fruits, but still a freshness. We want some tannin, a bit more of that gently drying sensation in the Cabernet Sauvignon, but we work with that tannin so that it has a refreshing sort of structuring feel. Now when you taste it again, you get that racy, mouth-watering acidity to it as well. So even though you're getting those dark berry fruits, that richness, you get that lovely mouth-watering feel. What we aim for with these wines is that each sip is going to leave your mouth watering and draw you back and hold your interest sip after sip. I hope you'll enjoy that delicious Cabernet Sauvignon. And then one last thing we'll try today is our Moscato d'Oro. So Moscato is becoming rapidly more and more popular and a trendy variety, and rightly so. I think it's so delicious and has these beautiful, exuberant, fresh fruit flavors. Way ahead of the trend, Robert Mondavi Winery started making Moscato back in the 1970s. It's a style inspired by the wines of northwest Italy, from Piemonte. It's not so much a late harvest style, it's a style of wine we make, picking the grapes almost at a normal ripeness level, but we first of all ferment it at a very cool temperature, around about 10 degrees for the fermentation. And when you ferment the wine very cool like that, you capture and preserve more of those fresh fruit aromatic characteristics. And then the other important step in making this wine is we actually stop the fermentation about halfway through the process. So normally when we make a dry wine, as we call it, you start with about 25% sugar and ferment it until there's no sugar left and about 14% alcohol. With this wine, you start again about 25% sugar, fermented about halfway, and what that means is we still have half of that natural grape juice sugar left in the wine, so it has this beautiful sweetness, but it's a really fresh sweetness. It's like biting into beautifully ripe fresh fruit. The other effect, of course, is we've only created about half as much alcohol, so it's only about 7-8% alcohol, so half as strong as a lot of dry wines, and that makes it a really nice, light way, great way to finish a meal. Fun as an aperitif though, and great, again, a multi-purpose wine. Very unusual to have Moscato or Muscat grown in Napa Valley, which of course is such a premium region. So when you taste this wine, you'll get wonderful intensity and exuberance in those fruit flavors, but still a wine packed with fun and freshness, and a wine that always reminds me, I think, of Mr. Mondavi's important message that the true purpose of wine is not just to be art, and we do like to think of it as art for the palate, art in the world of flavor, but the real purpose of wine is just to add beauty and joy to a meal and to bring people together and enjoy a good conversation and a good meal. And I hope you will enjoy a fine bottle of our wine. Cheers.